this schedule really shapes up for a playoff run with a 12-team playoff.
Areas that, you need to get from experience, which is just, hey, I need to make quicker decisions.
How do you define success for this team?
National championship.
What's up, y'all? Bud Elliott here, back again with Summer School on the Cover 3 podcast. That's my man, Ryan Burns. That means we are talking Minnesota today, Gopher Illustrated. Burns, what's going on, dude?
I'm well, enjoying my Minnesota Twins, trying to keep up with your Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to see who can get out a little bit of mediocrity here.
I'm a little worried about our pitching staff in this Florida heat. It's about to be where like games are starting at 7 and it's still like 92 degrees outside and hot, and it's a bandbox of a stadium. Back in the air-conditioned dome, we can play some games with the AC and just kind of keep our arms fresh, and not so much this year. So it's weird seeing these like 12 to 10 games, but.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's trying to see if a core of Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, and Royce Lewis can all be on the field at the same time, which has been a theory here for the last now 2 years and going.
That's, Vegas does pretty well with parlays, don't they?
Exactly. Right?
Oh, man. All right, so Minnesota, Fleck has them competitive year after year, even with the shift from the West to the, just kind of jumbled up, no more divisions in the Big Ten. I thought they showed pretty well last year. What's kind of the overall mood with the program right now?
I think anytime you can win 8 games at the University of Minnesota, you're going to be highly thought of. Now, that 8 wins could have been 6, probably should have been more closer to 10 with a lot of these one-possession games and the way that they lost to teams like North Carolina, Rutgers, among others. But if you can win 6, 7, 8 games every year at the University of Minnesota, I'm only 32 years old here. I'm well aware of how mediocre they've been through the 90s and 2000s and how Jerry Kill kind of raised the floor, and then PJ raised the floor even more. But if you can make a bowl game every year at the University of Minnesota, you're very likely to have a contract every single year going forward, because that hasn't been a guarantee for large stretches of my life. So I don't think the floor has ever been higher here. The question is, does Minnesota have another ceiling season in them like they did in 2019 when they would have been college football playoff right on the bubble, competing to go to Indianapolis? That's the thing we haven't seen since 2019, and that's where I think for a section of the hardcore fans, they want to see, can we get that more than once in every generation?
Which is, I think that's where the divisional change probably comes in a little bit. But last year the offense took a nice step forward. They hit on quarterback with Max. This year they brought in 2. Pyron, the Georgia Tech kid, already transferred out. This seems, for all the world, like Drake Lindsey's job. What should we expect from him?
Yeah, I know that the offensive coordinator, no matter what level of college, is usually the second most hated guy on the staff behind the head coach, no matter what it is. But I think the strides that you saw from Greg Harbaugh Jr. last year were promising. From year 1 to year 2, he acknowledges that Ethan Kaliak-Manis wasn't it, goes out and nails a portal quarterback, which for what they were paying Brosmer compared to what the quarterback portal market is now, if Max Brosmer would have had another year of eligibility, number one, I think he probably wouldn't have been at Ohio State. And number 2, it would have been an exorbitant price tag. So to get them for what they got, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 65+ completion percentage, one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in a Gopher uniform in some time, I think Harbaugh deserves a lot of credit for that. Now, on the flip side, their run game was incredibly inconsistent, one of the worst run games we've seen in Fleck's tenure. Why? That's a great question, because they had some talent along the offensive line. I just don't think the offensive line gelled together very well. Darius Taylor is a very good tailback, but when you look forward here to 2025, this is the Drake Lindsey show. I know that PJ Fleck won't come out and say that before the Buffalo game, which is Minnesota's opener, but Drake Lindsey, the redshirt freshman out of Arkansas, is the one that they have hitched their wagon to. He's someone that if you talk to Max Brosmer, they think the world of him. That was the other half of Max Brosmer's job, was to come in and get Drake Lindsey ready, show him the habits that it takes to be a really good college quarterback, and they think they've instilled that in him. Now, look, people can say I'm drinking the maroon and gold colored Kool-Aid. Maybe I am, but I am also aware of what redshirt freshmen in the Big Ten look like starting in their first season. I don't have gaudy expectations for him, but if he can just have a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio somewhere around there, plus complete, say, 60% of his passes, that's going to be a win for me. I think that this kid, there's going to be a lot of comparisons made between him and Ethan Kaliak-Manis as young starters at the University of Minnesota. I think the difference to me is while both have arm talent, both have arm strength, I think Drake Lindsey's processing ability for what Greg Harbaugh is putting on him at the line of scrimmage, because Minnesota does a lot of things at the line of scrimmage in their offense. Greg Harbaugh is a huge Ben Johnson guy, Liam Cohen guy, watches a lot of Sean McVay, where they have quarterbacks that they like to put a lot on their quarterbacks at the line of scrimmage to change things. And they're going to put as much on Drake's plate as they possibly can. So they think the world of him. I will just tell you, I understand he's a redshirt freshman starting at the University of Minnesota. Let's see how this thing goes.
How much will his legs factor?
He's 6'5", probably like 235. He's more athletic than you think. He's not going to beat you to the edge if we're trying to run for a first down versus the linebacker.
Yeah.
But that's not where he wins. Where he wins is with his arm. He makes some throws look really easy. And no matter if that's 25 yards down the field, whether it's a opposite hash deep out, when it's clicking for him, it's fun to watch. Now, he's a redshirt freshman going into his second season, and he's never started a college football game in his life. But we're going to see how it translates to Saturdays. But from what I've seen in practice here, trust me, I'm very optimistic. I want to be the high guy in the room on Drake Lindsey for expectations, but I will continue to say I acknowledge those expectations should probably be a little lower.
Makes sense. I asked because from a both like a red zone production standpoint, but also how do you control that backside pursuit in the run game? Is it RPO or is it quarterback keep type ability?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that run game, last year it was super inconsistent. This year they lose Irsay to the draft. Is there a reason for optimism here with the run game?
Yeah, I think so. That was one of the areas that Harbaugh talked about this spring, and we asked him about it, was your run game wasn't very good. And they only ran for something about 115 yards per game, which, if you know anything about the University of Minnesota, isn't where they want to live. Now, the strength of their offense was Max Brosmer last year, and they leaned a lot more on that, which is why Brosmer now holds single-season records in all-time University of Minnesota history for certain passing statistics. The other part of it was their run game just could never – you never knew if in one game it was going to go like it did against USC, or if one game it's not going to go, where your offensive line gets punched in the teeth and it just doesn't show. To your point, they had a second-round draft pick in Ariante Ursary at left tackle. They had a couple other guys in Quinn Carroll, Tyler Cooper, who signed UDFA contracts. Why weren't they good? That is the question they've been trying to figure out. They've been experimenting a lot more with different things in the run game. They're going to have a lot of new starters along that offensive line this year. You're going to have 5 guys starting at different positions compared to what their final game was last year, because they also lost their right tackle, Phillip Daniels, to the portal, who's now at Ohio State, and I'm not incredibly sure where he's going to be at on the Ohio State depth chart, considering the amount of transfer offensive linemen the Buckeyes were looking at here this spring. But they're trying to piecemeal this thing together. Now, they address things on the offensive line with Washington's Khalid Tafai, Kentucky's Dylan Ray, Marcellus Marshall from Central Florida, who has started 40 games at the collegiate level. They think they're going to be more athletic up front. The question is, how good are they going to be up front? They're all going to be over the legal drinking age for the most part, outside of maybe left tackle. But how good can they be as a unit? The hope would be as a unit, they can be better because they have Darius Taylor, who I know a lot of people probably don't know who Darius Taylor is, but Darius Taylor caught 50-something passes last year, which was one of the best in Power 2. He almost ran for 1,000 rushing yards. He was able to stay healthy. And now heading into 2025, if you were to list the top 25 collegiate running backs, I think Darius Taylor belongs on that list. The question is, can they get him going more in an outside zone, inside zone running scheme with this offensive line unit compared to last year's offensive line unit?
I think almost anybody who's listening to a, college football show in the dead of summer, they're going to know Darius. I think they know Darius. They better know Darius Taylor. That guy's a player. You mentioned that they lose Jackson and Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
PJ Fleck is not scared to force feed one guy if that guy is deserving of that target share. What are we looking at here? Is there a guy to emerge on the outside who's like maybe an 80 catch type guy and 1,000-yard type dude? Because fantasy players are very interested in this, as am I.
Yeah, no, I trust me. I get the messages like 2 hours before kickoff of, is this guy playing? Where do you think target share is here? I love you, college football degenerates, man. I love you. I love all of you. I love how you're grinding out Minnesota football games. But when you look at the target tree, at least heading into the summer here, heading into fall camp, I think it's going to be as widely distributed as we've seen in some time. Where you mentioned Daniel Jackson and Elijah Spencer, Minnesota's top 2 leading receivers last year, commanded a 50-plus target share. I mean, that's where essentially everything went, and then it checked down to Darius Taylor if it wasn't there. Well, now neither one of those guys are there. You got a brand new quarterback. I'm one of the people who will die on the hill of quarterback checkdowns are a quarterback thing. Like I think about Drew Brees over the years with his checkdowns to Alvin Kamara. I think it's very quarterback dependent, not necessarily scheme dependent at times. Now, you would like to think the redshirt freshman would still check it down to Darius Taylor en route to, say, 30-plus catches. But if there's going to be one guy on the outside to emerge, I think it's going to be Javon Tracy, the Miami of Ohio transfer. They were very high on him coming into the spring, and every practice I was at, he continued to make big plays, I would say. You look at a guy like Logan Loya, who can move the chains on third down, was UCLA's leading receiver. Someone who's going to work in the slot. Again, you're thinking third down, red zone, green zone, trying to move the chains. But it's going to be as widely distributed to me because you've got other guys that I think they're going to be very matchup dependent, guys like Lemeki Brockington, guys like either one of their tight ends, Jamison Gears, Drew Bibber. Jalen Smith is a redshirt freshman they really like. I don't think there's an alpha receiver, to make a long story short, that people should be going out to get in their Big Ten fantasy drafts. I would say that if you're expecting Darius Taylor to catch another 50 passes, I don't think that's in the cards. I think 30 plus. Plus, you have to remember, too, they added A.J. Turner from Marshall, who for guys who have over 100 carries last year, he had the highest yards per carry in all of Group of 5, I think all of Power 4, plus Cam Davis from Washington. Is just a couple of years removed from, I think, a 12-touchdown season back when he was really, really healthy. So they're going to spread out the pieces of the pie more than they have. So at least that's the plan.
All right, let's hit a break here. When we come back, we're talking a little defense.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, so last year, defense had its ups and downs. I think a lot of the things you highlighted in last year's episode, if you guys want to go back and watch that, Ryan is all over this thing. Like, they stayed healthy at some spots, which was pretty key, a little bit less at others. You had an awesome freshman safety emerge, as you correctly predicted could happen. And now you have a new defensive coordinator. So Danny Collins comes in. What are we expecting change-wise from him? And what are we expecting change-wise due to, like, personnel turnover and changes of who's actually on the field?
Yeah, I'm going to be excited to one year there's going to be a coordinator not change here at the University of Minnesota, because I've seen Joe Rossi go take a bag from Michigan State just 2 years ago. Then Corey Heatherman is brought in. He takes an extension and is projected to be the highest paid coordinator in Minnesota history, around 1.15. Miami comes in, broke boys Minnesota to the tune of, I think, somewhere around 1.6 for 3 years, which, look, that's a heck of a deal if you can get it, especially if Cristobal
no state
doesn't
tax
have
in Florida, man.
I mean, if Cristobal doesn't have the season that Miami thinks, my man's going to collect a $3 million check to go away, which the Jimbo Fisher special is undefeated. But Danny Collins steps in his stead, and Danny Collins has been here a long time. He's been with PJ Fleck since the Western Michigan days. Now he is, I believe, the third youngest defensive coordinator at Power 2. He's only 32 years old, and I say that as a 32-year-old. It's been a rise up the ranks for him. Just a couple of years ago, he became the safeties coach, but you look at what he's done with the safeties. You mentioned Coy Perich. You think about Tyler Nubin, who was a draft pick just 2 years ago in the second round for the New York Football Giants. He's done very well with that safety room. Now, the question is he ready to take that next step? That's the thing we're all going to find out kind of together here, because they lost a lot of NFL talent on that 2024 defense. Justin Wally was a third-round draft pick corner for the Indianapolis Colts back in April. You look at Cody Lindenberg, he was a seventh-round selection. Ja Joyner they lost. Guys like Danny Strigow played a ton of snaps. Ethan Robinson. They have a lot of guys that signed UDFA contracts who played a lot of football for them. And I look at this defense coming back, and that's my worrisome side of the football, is the defensive side. They've got some guys on the defensive line like Anthony Smith, who I think a lot of people are going to get to know Anthony Smith if they don't know already. Minnesota has had a first or a second round draft pick in now 6 consecutive NFL drafts, which, look, we're talking about the University of Minnesota of all places. I'm well aware of the team I cover, and they're standing within, say, the blue bloods of college football. 6 straight first or second round picks is a heck of an accomplishment for this university. And if that is going to hit 7, Anthony Smith is going to be the reason why. He's someone that could have commanded $2 million plus on the portal market this past spring. Someone who's incredibly disruptive. I mean, he looks exactly the part of all these freaks that go in the first and second round. Is coming off a great season. Now he's going into year 4. You look at a guy like Devin Eastern, who's got prospect pedigrees, about 2-year starter already. Jalen Logan Redding's a 3-year starter already. I just think they're very, very thin at the defensive line spot. Now they brought in a couple of transfers like Rushawn Lawrence from Stony Brook, Stephen Curtis from Illinois State. But the drop off to me from 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 to 5 through 8 is worrisome to me. And I'm well aware of covering this team. This will be my 15th year covering a Big Ten program. I know where this thing gets won and lost, especially as we get in October, November, and that's in the trenches. Now, if they stay healthy on the defensive line, I feel pretty good. But if they don't, it's going to be, I don't think, great at times, where I think you're going to see those rushing totals go up a little bit too much. But to get back to Collins to finish it out, I mean, he is a big Joe Rossi disciple. I mean, those two were together at the hip. I think he also learned a lot from Corey Heatherman in their 1 year together. It's still going to be a 4-2-5 defense. They're not going to be crazy trying to change it to a 3-4, anything like that. But I just don't think they're as gifted as they were, especially in the second and third level, as they were a year ago.
For those who have not seen Coy Perich play, which is kind of inexcusable because there was the USC game and the Penn State game, and those were, on pretty major networks and also like really pretty exciting games to watch.
Right.
Describe his game for me. Like, have you seen a guy with that kind of upside play defense for Minnesota?
I mean, I've seen a lot of really good safeties here, like Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, one of the highest paid defensive backs. I've seen Tyler Nubin, Jordan Howden was an NFL draft pick, but for Coy to do it as a summer enrollee is something I haven't seen in some time. I mean, that's where I tried to temper expectations a lot last year for him because he was a summer enrollee. But the reality of the situation was once they started playing in fall camp, I'm getting text messages from staff members saying they just can't put him back in the bottle. Like, we can't put him back in the bottle. He's going to get some more and more on his plate in September as he continues to get. And he made the most of it in the non-conference, gets more of an opportunity in October, and just goes all the way to a first-team All-Big Ten season. I mean, he was one of the most instinctual players at safety that you'll see, especially for a young kid. I mean, he plays a heck of a center field. Plus, he's really willing to come up and hit in the box too. Now, as much as it is Coy Perich, I mean, I think Kerry Brown is somebody that's really, really good as well. I mean, had multiple interceptions last year, a Florida native. Aiden Gooseby, a Florida native. They feel very, very good about those 3 guys rotating between free, strong safety, and nickel. But Coy Perich is, I would say, I mean, he's one of the most confident players, and it's borderline cocky. But if you're going to be as good as he is, you have to have some of that. I think your son would tell me that he's got to have a little bit of aura around him. And trust me when I say Coy Perich doesn't lack confidence. It's funny, he's more of a soft-spoken kid when you get him in front of the mic. But you see him out there on the field, he makes a big play. He's going to let everybody know about it. So he's a very, very gifted kid. And I know there's a lot of people in this state that are very excited that Coy Perich remained a Gopher because, like I do, he could have gotten a lot more money elsewhere. But he is a fun player to watch, man. I'm excited to see, especially in the return game. Minnesota has not had a return touchdown since 2018. I mean, it's embarrassing, their return game. Coy Perich was close a couple of times once he got the shot last year. I'm hoping he finally breaks that streak this year. We will definitely be watching. Schedule-wise, I kind of like how this breaks down with a fairly friendly start. Cal lost a ton to the portal. You get Buffalo, Northwestern State. Rutgers comes to Minnesota. Pretty good chance of opening undefeated through the month of September, which is nice when you're breaking in some of those new players. You don't want to write these games off as losses, but if you're going to play Ohio State and Oregon, I think I'd rather have a more winnable game at home in exchange for going on the road to play those guys, right? Other than those two, there's not a game in which they profile as a major underdog, unless I'm really misreading what this team is. What
Ryan, how would you define success for Minnesota in 2025?
I think it's very similar to last year schedule-wise, where there's 2 games on the schedule at Ohio State, at Oregon, where you're going to be 2 touchdown underdogs. You're going to really not have a ton of expectations for those type of games. You have 2 games to start the season where you'll be likely double-digit point. I mean, I've never heard of Northwestern State, I'll be honest, until I looked at the schedule and then I looked and saw they were, I believe, an 0-11 FCS team last year. Now, I think Buffalo's better than what people think. Probably going to be a top half MAC team. But to your point, we're talking about a Cal team then when Minnesota goes on the road for the first time that has been absolutely decimated. I think if we weren't talking about the Tennessee quarterback situation, the way that Cal has kind of blown up their roster and seen every meaningful piece more or less depart would be more of a talking point here in the offseason. I know college football sickos like us, I mean, we're well aware of how crazy it's been, especially with Ron Rivera having to release statements saying we're all in the car together and driving. Okay, yeah, that sends a lot of good feelings about that. But it's 2 games you should win, 2 games you're probably going to lose, and then 8 games in between where you're going to be in 1-possession games. And that's something that PJ Fleck has talked about throughout last season, heading into this season, even in the spring, is they weren't good in 1-possession games last year. I think they were 3-5. And you look at why were they so successful in 2019. I think they were 6-1 or 7-1 in 1-possession games. Now, you mentioned the schedule. I mean, Rutgers, there's so many of these games in that middle portion where, I mean, you get a bye week to prepare for Rutgers, and PJ Fleck can say that it didn't matter. I'm going to tell you the amount of animosity at times or just strong feelings about one another between PJ Fleck and Greg Schiano. And you look at Kirk Shiraka and Greg Harbaugh were attached to the hip for a very long time. Joe Harris-Simiak, who used to be there, that was a game I think they got a little spun up for last year. Rutgers got a bye week to prepare for them. Now Minnesota gets a bye week to prepare for them, while I believe Rutgers has to go play Iowa the previous week. You look at, say the Iowa Hawkeyes when Minnesota has to travel down to Kinnick. Well, the 2 games that Iowa's got to play before Minnesota are at Wisconsin, and they face a number 3 ranked Penn State team. You look at what happens before Minnesota hosts Michigan State at home. They've got to take on an Indiana team and a Michigan team. Even games like Northwestern at the end of the season. This is how you look at a win total. I believe it's around 6.5 or so, which I told you last year. To have Minnesota open at 4.5 last year was a choice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm well aware of how beautiful those Vegas casinos are, and I'm excited to see you down there for Big Ten Media Days when you get to be all dolled up, looking all nice and dapper and whatnot. But 6.5 is, I think, a good spot. I think a lot of it comes down to how does Drake Lindsey look?
Yeah.
If you have got a quarterback, you've got a quarterback, and you're probably going to go 7-8 wins. If you don't got a quarterback or you have an injury, you're going to be sitting at 5-6 wins. I just think that for so many of these teams like Minnesota, where you're not in the top tier, not even in the top couple tiers, you saw last year in the Big Ten, teams 6 through 14 on any given week can do anything. That's why Minnesota goes into Champaign last year. I think they played well, probably like a 75th percentile game. They didn't play above their head, but they beat Illinois and Champaign last year, and you're the only team to do so. But to your point about the schedule, you avoid Illinois, you avoid a lot of these teams, and you got Ohio State and Oregon on the road, but you got 10 other games there where if you can hit in 1-possession games and you can go 7-3 in those, that's an over in the win total, baby.
I like that, man. I think I trust PJ to comfortably make a bowl, and unless the offense really is just super clunky. But you get the month to figure it out. Schiano will have something for you defensively, but and not that Wilcox is no slouch of a defensive coach at Cal, obviously, but 17 points might win that game. So
yeah, that Cal game is just. I've never seen something like that where the entire running back room transfers out. You lose your quarterback to Indy. They're just so decimated. To your point, if you can score 20 points in that game, which, look, first road game for a guy like Drake Lindsey, I get it. But, they just lost the linebacker right before the portal ended to Stanford. It is not great for Cal right now. Like the vibes, and you can talk about vibes don't matter. PJ Fleck would tell you momentum is not a thing in college football. I would look at him and kind of be like, okay, pause. Are we sure about that? Yeah. But the vibes are not good at Cal. And if you can go 3-0 to get into the bye week to really get ready for Rutgers, again, if you can win those two kind of games to start there, yeah, I think a bowl game is very, very attainable for a school like Minnesota.
Birdsey, enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I always love coming on these. Again, I'm one of the sickos that here in June, July, where we got this in as we're out walking. Can't wait for this college football season to start.
All right, I'll see you in Vegas.